In the 31st millennium of one timeline, hope still flickered in the hearts of mortals. Heroes rose to face cosmic threats. The pure-hearted could stand against darkness and emerge victorious. In this brighter age, a Saiyan warrior named Son Goku journeyed toward the planet Namek to face the tyrant Frieza, unaware that his path was being watched by malevolent eyes across the barriers of time itself. Zamasu, the fallen Kai whose hatred of mortal existence burned hotter than dying stars. He had tasted defeat at Goku's hands in the future, had seen this Saiyan's pure heart and relentless growth represent everything he despised about mortal potential. But defeat, for one such as Zamasu, was merely a learning opportunity. If I cannot destroy him in my present, the rogue deity whispered as he gathered the stolen power of the Super Dragon Balls across multiple timelines, then I shall ensure he never becomes the threat I know him to be. I shall strand him in a reality so brutal, so utterly without hope, that even his pure heart will be crushed beneath its weight. The temporal rift tore open like a wound in the fabric of existence itself, reaching backward through time to intercept a single moment. Goku's journey to Namek, where destiny would be forever altered. Farewell, Son Goku. Zamasu's voice echoed across impossible distances. May you find the war you so desperately crave in the grim darkness of the far future, where there is only war.
Part 1. Fall from Grace. Chapter 1. Between Realities. The space between Goku's capsule corpse ship and the planet Namek should have been empty, void, filled with nothing but the cold vacuum of space and distant starlight. Instead, reality twisted into impossible geometries as Zamasu's portal of sickly green energy materialized directly in his path. What the? Goku began, his enhanced senses immediately detecting the rawness of what approached. This wasn't natural space-time distortion. This was something actively malevolent, something that carried the psychic stench of divine hatred. Gravitational forces beyond his understanding seized his ship and pulled it inexorably toward the dimensional breach. The reinforced hull, designed to withstand the rigors of interplanetary travel, began to buckle and crack under stresses that belonged to no natural phenomenon. Through the transparent aluminum of his viewport, Goku could see colors that had no names, geometries that hurt to perceive, and something vast and terrible watching from the spaces between realities. The last thing he remembered before consciousness fled was laughter echoing across dimensions, and the sensation of falling through infinite darkness toward a universe that had forgotten what mercy meant. When awareness returned, it came with the taste of ash and the stench of burning promethium. Goku found himself lying in the center of a crater that stretched nearly 100 meters across, his orange gi torn and blackened, blood trickling from cuts he didn't remember receiving. The sky above him was wrong. Two suns burning through a haze of perpetual smoke and chemical fog, casting harsh shadows across a landscape that looked like it had been designed by nightmares. He sat up slowly, his head spinning from the dimensional transition, and tried to make sense of his surroundings. The ground beneath him wasn't soil, but some kind of industrial waste, mixed with ash and what might have been bone fragments. In the distance, towering spires of metal and flesh reached toward the poisonous sky, while closer at hand, crude structures that barely qualified as architecture squatted among fields of rust and decay. "This isn't Namek," he said aloud, his voice seeming small and lost in the vast wasteland surrounding him. "This isn't anywhere in the galaxy I know." That was when he became aware of the circle of massive figures surrounding his crater. Chapter 2: First Contact. They stood at least 8 feet tall, their powerful frames covered in green-tinged skin that was scarred and pockmarked with crude tattoos and ritual scarification. They wore armor that looked like it had been assembled from scrap metal and held together by faith alone, while their weapons were brutal things designed more to cause pain than to kill efficiently. Their eyes, small and piggy, but gleaming with primitive intelligence, were fixed on him with expressions that mixed curiosity and predatory hunger. But there was something else, something that his enhanced senses detected immediately. These beings radiated psychic energy in a way he had never encountered before. Not the refined ki of martial artists or the cosmic power of beings like Frieza, but something more primal and more concern. The very air around them seemed thick with potential, as if reality itself was more malleable in their presence. At their head stood a figure that dwarfed even his massive companions. Nearly 10 feet of muscle and crude cybernetic enhancement, with one arm replaced entirely by a mechanical claw that sparked with electrical discharge. Across his scarred chest hung necklaces made from skulls of various species, while his remaining natural arm gripped a weapon that was part chainsaw, part axe, and entirely terrifying. This was war boss Grimtusk Ironjaw, and he had not survived 3 decades of constant warfare by showing mercy to anything that breathed. The war boss studied Goku for a long moment, his head tilted like a predator examining potential prey. Then, slowly, his lips pulled back to reveal a mouth full of metal teeth, and he began to laugh. Well, Grimtusk rumbled, his voice carrying the authority of absolute violence. "What have we got here, boys? Some little Humie dropped right into our laps like a gift from Gork and Mork themselves." The other orcs began to chuckle and growl, their weapons shifting in their grips with obvious anticipation. To them, Goku represented nothing more than entertainment, a brief diversion before their return to the serious business of fighting each other. But Goku, despite his confusion and the alien hostility surrounding him, did not show fear. He climbed slowly to his feet, dusted off his torn gi with careful, deliberate movements, and looked up at the assembled orcs with an expression that was not terror, but genuine fascination. "You guys look really tough," he said, settling into a fighting stance that was both casual and perfectly balanced. "I can sense incredible power from all of you. Are you warriors? Because I love fighting strong opponents." The orcs fell silent. In their experience, smaller beings had one of 2 reactions to being surrounded by a war. They either ran screaming into the wastes to die slowly, or they stood their ground and died quickly. They had never encountered one who looked at them and smiled like he was about to enjoy himself. Did this little git just challenge us? One of the orc boys whispered, his voice a mixture of disbelief and grudging admiration. Grimtusk's laughter died in his throat, replaced by something that might have been respect, or might have been hunger for a fight worth having. "Boys," he said slowly, raising his chain axe above his head. "I think we found ourselves something special here. Let's see if this Humie bleeds red, or if he's got something more interesting inside. Chapter 3: The Dance of War. What followed would be debated in orc camps across the sector for years to come. The first attack came from 3 directions simultaneously, crude but devastating blades that would have reduced a normal human to constituent atoms. Instead, Goku moved like water, flowing between their strikes with an economy of motion that bordered on the supernatural. His counterattacks were measured, precise, powerful enough to send his attacker staggering, but not so devastating as to kill them outright. This was not the desperate fighting of cornered prey, nor the cold efficiency of a trained killer. This was something the orcs had never encountered before, pure joy in the art of combat itself. Ah! Goku laughed as he ducked under a particularly vicious swing, his eyes bright with excitement. You weren't kidding about being tough. That technique was incredible. Where did you learn to combine momentum like that? Come on, don't hold back. I want to see what you can really do. And as steel clashed against flesh, as the brutal dance of violence began in earnest, something unprecedented started to happen in the grim darkness of the far future. The orcs began to laugh along with him. But there was something else occurring as well, something that even Goku didn't fully understand. The air around the battle seemed to thicken with potential energy, reality itself becoming more malleable in response to the psychic emanations of the combatants. Every strike, every movement, every moment of genuine joy in combat was somehow amplified by the universe's fundamental nature. Reality humming with potential. "Boss," one of the watching orcs whispered to another. The air feels different around the hummy, like it's more real somehow. It was true. In a universe where belief and emotion could literally reshape reality, where the collective unconscious of entire species influenced the fundamental laws of physics, Goku's pure joy in combat was having an effect that went beyond simple martial prowess. As the impromptu battle continued, as orc after orc stepped forward to test themselves against this impossible opponent, Goku began to feel something stirring deep within his Saiyan DNA. The Zenkai boost that was his birthright as a warrior was activating, but it was different here. Stronger, more intense. Each near defeat, each moment when he was pushed to his absolute limits, triggered not just physical adaptation, but something deeper. The psychic saturation of this universe was acting like a catalyst, supercharging his natural evolutionary responses in ways that should have taken years to develop. Incredible, he breathed during a brief lull in the fighting. I can feel myself getting stronger with every exchange. It's like this whole universe is designed to push warriors to their absolute limits. He was more right than he knew. Chapter 4: Brothers in War. 3 weeks had passed since Goku's arrival on the world the orcs called Scarek, a designation that roughly translated to "good place for fighting." In their crude tongue, in those weeks, something unprecedented had begun to take shape in the ruins of what had once been an imperial hive city. The changes in the orcs were subtle but profound, not supernatural transformation, but the kind of growth that came from exposure to new ideas and genuine care for their development. Under Goku's patient instruction, they had learned to channel their natural aggression more effectively, to work together as units rather than as individual fighters, to consider strategy and tactics alongside brute force. "That hummy's got strange ideas about fighting," rumbled Scarjack, one of Grimtusk's lieutenants. who had become Goku's primary training partner. The massive orc had sustained enough injuries in their sparring sessions to require extensive cybernetic replacement, but he wore his new augmentations like badges of honor. The Indinger. He keeps talking about growing stronger together, like we's all supposed to help each other get better. And it works. Grimtusk admitted, his mechanical jaw clicking as he observed his clan's improved performance. Look at the boys, Scarjack. When's the last time you seen orcs coordinate like that? When's the last time we won a scrap without losing half our numbers? It was true. The clan's recent raids had been devastatingly effective, not through superior firepower or numbers, but through tactical coordination that was utterly unprecedented in orc society. They were learning to fight not just as individuals seeking personal glory, but as a cohesive force working toward common objectives. More importantly, they were developing something that had no place in traditional orc culture: wisdom. Not the cold calculation of strategic planners, but something warmer and more fundamental. They were learning to care about things beyond immediate gratification and personal advancement. You know what's weird? Scarjack confided to his war boss one evening as they shared a meal around the central fire. Ever since Dahumi got here, I've been having different kinds of dreams. Not just about crushing enemies and taking their stuff. Dreams about protecting things, about building something worth fighting for. But their peaceful development was not destined to last. As word of the corrupted clan spread across the planet's warring factions, other war bosses began to take notice. Some saw opportunity in their tactical innovations. Others saw threat in their unprecedented cooperation. And a few saw something that demanded immediate and violent correction. The challenge, when it came, followed ancient orc tradition, but carried modern implications that none of them fully understood. Chapter 5: The Price of Change. Warboss Skarskull was everything that made orcs terrifying. 12 feet of scarred muscle and crude cybernetic enhancement, armed with weapons that had claimed more lives than some Imperial Guard regiments. But more dangerous than his physical prowess was his cunning and his absolute dedication to traditional orc values. I challenge Dahumi! He bellowed across the wasteland separating the two encampments, his voice amplified by crude but effective voxcasters. This corruption of proper orc ways ends now. Single combat, winner takes all. Goku studied his challenger through enhanced senses that could detect power levels with remarkable accuracy. Skarskull was strong, stronger than any opponent he had faced since arriving in this universe. More than that, the rival warboss carried himself with the confidence of someone who had never known defeat. You don't have to do this, Grimtusk said quietly as they prepared for the formal challenge. Skarskull's got a reputation for treachery. He ain't gonna fight fair. I know, Goku replied, but his expression showed excitement rather than concern. That's what makes it interesting. Besides, I can't let him hurt you guys, just because you've been helping me learn about this universe. The ancient stone circle that served as their arena had witnessed countless duels over the millennia, each contest adding new stains to its already blood-soaked surface. But today it would witness something unprecedented, a human standing as champion for an orc clan, facing an opponent whose reputation for savagery was legendary even by the standards of his brutal species. As the two combatants entered the circle from opposite sides, the differences between them could not have been more stark. Where Skarskull was massive and threatening, Goku appeared almost small by comparison, though anyone with enhanced senses could detect the coiled power in his compact frame and the absolute confidence in his movements. "So," Skarsgård rumbled, his voice carrying easily across the arena to the hundreds of orcs gathered around its perimeter. "This is the famous Hume what's been corrupting good orc warriors with his fancy techniques and soft thinking. You don't look like much to me, alien. Just another weakling that's about to learn what real strength means." Goku settled into a ready stance, his expression serious but not hostile. "I'm not here to prove anything about strength," he replied, his voice calm and measured. "I'm here because my friends asked me to fight for them, and because you're threatening people I care about. That's reason enough." What happened next defied every expectation. Skarsgård's opening attack was devastating, coordinated and utterly lethal, and it never came close to touching its target. The massive chain axe swept through the space where Goku had been standing, its whirring teeth gouging deep furrows in the ancient stone. But Goku was no longer there, having moved with a speed that made him effectively invisible to normal perception. His counterattack, a simple palm strike to Skarsgård's solar plexus, should have been easily absorbed by the larger fighter's natural durability and cybernetic reinforcements. Instead, the impact lifted the 12-foot orc completely off his feet and sent him flying backward across the arena to impact the far wall with enough force to crack the volcanic glass. The crowd fell silent. This was not just superior technique or unexpected speed. This was power operating on a scale that transcended their understanding of what was possible for beings of flesh and blood. But Skarsgård was far from finished. As he pulled himself from the crater his impact had created, his eyes blazed with fury and something approaching fear. This human was operating on a completely different level, accessing reserves of strength that seemed to have no upper limit. "That was a lucky shot," he roared, though his voice carried less conviction than before. "Let's see how you handle a real fight." What followed was a sustained assault that would have reduced a space marine dreadnought to scrap metal. Chain axe and flamer worked in perfect coordination, creating a storm of cutting edges and superheated promethium that filled the entire center of the arena with lethal force. But as the battle progressed, something remarkable began to happen. Each exchange, each moment when Goku was forced to push his abilities to their absolute limits, triggered the ancient Saiyan biological imperative that had made his race legendary. His power was growing, adapting, evolving in real time to meet the challenges being thrown at him. More than that, he was beginning to understand something fundamental about this universe that he had only sensed before. The crude but effective orc technology, the way their weapons seemed to function through sheer bloody-minded determination, as much as engineering, it was all connected to something deeper. A force that permeated reality itself and responded to will and emotion as much as physical law. The warp, the Imperium, the realm where thoughts became reality, and belief could literally reshape the fundamental nature of existence. And as that understanding crystallized, as Goku's Saiyan instincts began to resonate with the psychic energy that filled this universe, something unprecedented began to happen. Chapter 6: The Treachery. Recognizing systematic defeat and growing desperate, Skarsgård activated hidden weapons, violating every tradition of honorable combat. Concealed rocket launchers, positioned during the night, opened fire simultaneously. Not at Goku, who could have dodged, but at spectators surrounding the arena. "If I can't beat you," Skarskull snarled as explosions blossomed among gathered orcs. "Then I'll make sure nobody remembers your victory." The next seconds stretched into eternity. Goku watched in horror as dozens of orcs who'd become friends were caught in coordinated bombardment. Grotfang, who'd listened so intently to his Earth stories. Scarjack, whose mechanical arm bore scars from countless sparring sessions. Borkhead, he'd been so proud mastering advanced footwork. They were dying, not in honorable combat, but as victims of cowardice and treachery. Something snapped inside Goku's mind. Not his sanity. His pure heart was too strong, but something deeper. A barrier that had existed since birth. A limit placed on his power by the biological fact that his original universe operated by different rules. That barrier shattered like glass. The transformation began with light, not gentle golden radiance, but something harsh and brilliant that burned away shadows. His hair solidified into yellow that hurt to look at directly. His eyes became emerald flames, piercing through matter itself. But something else was happening, belonging entirely to this universe of endless war. Psychic saturation permeating every atom was resonating with his transformation in ways no mortal should survive. Alien energy threads began weaving through his aura, creating patterns making reality seem uncertain. His power, now amplified beyond anything achieved in his original timeline, was touching forces existing beyond normal physics. This was more than Super Saiyan transformation. This was what happened when Saiyan biology encountered the Imperium, when the drive to grow stronger met a universe where such growth was inevitable for those with will to seize it. The scream tearing from his throat wasn't entirely human. It carried harmonics in dimensions perpendicular to normal space-time, frequencies making watching orcs clutch their heads as ancient stones cracked and splintered. When he moved, it was with terrible inevitability of natural disaster. Skarskull's Chain X simply ceased to exist, contacting Goku's aura. The orc lasted only slightly longer, reduced to component atoms by forces that should have been inaccessible to mortals. But even as his enemy was eliminated, even as hidden weapons were systematically destroyed by ki blasts carving through steel like tissue, Goku found himself fighting a different battle entirely. Power coursing through him was intoxicating, addictive beyond anything in his experience. More than that, he could sense vast intelligences turning their attention toward him, cosmic entities, existing beyond physical reality, taking notice of this unprecedented development. For a terrifying moment, as friends lay dying, and cosmic forces sought to understand what he'd become, Goku stood at a crossroads, determining not just his fate, but the entire galaxy's future. The choice he made would echo through eternity. Chapter 7. Angels of Death. The Imperial response came with the efficiency that had preserved humanity for 10 millennia. The Thunderhawk gunship, Eternal Vigilance, cut through Skerrak's poisoned atmosphere like the blade of divine retribution, its ceramite hull bearing the proud insignia of the Ultramarines chapter. Captain Titus studied the tactical displays with growing unease. The energy readings from the planet's surface defied classification. Power levels that rivaled those of greater daemons, contained within what appeared to be a single humanoid individual. Brothers, he spoke to his strike force. What we face today is unknown. The readings suggest an entity of unprecedented power, apparently allied with Xenos forces. We will investigate, assess, and if necessary, eliminate this threat to Imperial security. The Orc encampment they approached bore little resemblance to the chaotic warrens typically associated with greenskin settlements. Instead of ramshackle chaos, they found organized defensive positions and tactical coordination, that was utterly unprecedented in Imperial records. This is not normal Orc behavior. Observed Tech Marine Varro, his augmented sensors recording everything. Someone has been teaching them strategy and discipline. That was when they encountered the source of the anomaly. "You guys are new here," came a voice from behind them. "Oh," Goku said, raising hands peacefully while studying Space Marines with genuine fascination. "You guys are incredible. I can sense your power from here, and it's like nothing I felt before. The energy patterns in your bodies are amazing. Are you some kind of enhanced humans?" Captain Titus faced a situation with no training precedent. "Identify yourself. By what authority do you consort with Xenos? Why do you show no fear in the presence of the Emperor's warriors?" "Well, I'm Son Goku," he replied. "I don't really have authority. I'm just trying to help my friends learn to fight better. As for fear," he smiled with genuine warmth. "Why would I be afraid of fellow warriors? You seem like good people, even if you're a bit intense." "Fellow warriors?" Sergeant Cassius stepped forward, veteran instincts detecting something significant. "You claim warrior status appearing unarmed and unarmored? Demonstrate your capabilities." Instead of words, Goku gestured toward a massive chunk of twisted metal that had once been part of an Imperial defense platform. With casual motion, he launched a small golden energy sphere that struck debris and reduced several tons of reinforced metal to component atoms in a flash of light. "I don't like to fight unless I have to," he said as echoes faded. "But I've gotten pretty good at it over the years. Though I have to say, you guys feel stronger than most opponents I've faced. This could be really interesting." Weapons lowering slightly in surprise. The demonstration was impressive, but what truly concerned Space Marines was the complete lack of visible effort. This individual had displayed firepower rivaling their chapter's most devastating weapons while treating it as casually as breathing. "Where did you come from?" Titus demanded, tactical mind racing through threat assessments. "What is your connection to these Xenos? How did you acquire such abilities?" "That's complicated." Goku's expression grew serious. "I'm not originally from this universe. Someone wanted to get rid of me, so they sent me here. The Orcs found me when I crashed, and instead of fighting to the death, we discovered we had a lot in common." He gestured toward the organized encampment. "They're good people, in their way. They love challenges, they're incredibly brave, and they're loyal to their friends. I've been teaching them techniques from my home, and they've been teaching me about how this universe works." "You speak of Xenos as if they were human allies." Brother Chaplain Castor interjected, skull-faced helmet lending menace to his words. "This borders on heresy. The Orcs are enemies of humanity, creatures whose existence threatens the Emperor's plan for the galaxy." For the first time, Goku's expression showed something other than curious goodwill. His voice carried weight, making several Marines take involuntary steps backward. "I don't know much about your Emperor or his plans," he said quietly. "But I know that judging people based on what species they are instead of who they are as individuals is wrong. My friends here fight because they love the challenge, not because they want to cause suffering. If your Emperor can't tell the difference between warriors and monsters, then maybe his plans aren't as perfect as you think." The blasphemy should have triggered immediate bolter fire, but before anyone could act on righteous fury, reality itself paused as a presence beyond physical form made itself known. "Stand down, my sons." Every Space Marine immediately lowered weapons and dropped to one knee. They knew that voice, had heard it during darkest trials, moments of greatest need. the voice of the Emperor himself, speaking directly across impossible distances.
Fascinating.
The presence continued, seeming to emanate from spaces between thoughts.
A soul from another reality entirely, carrying power that resonates with forces I have not encountered since the earliest days of human psychic evolution.
The Emperor's attention focused on Goku with intensity, bending reality around it.
Tell me, warrior from beyond the veil, what do you see when you look upon my children?
Goku studied the kneeling Space Marines, enhanced senses perceiving layers of modification and conditioning going far beyond genetic enhancement. I see people who have given up everything they were to become something greater, he said slowly. Their power is incredible, but it comes from sacrifice. They've traded individual identity for collective purpose, personal desires for absolute loyalty. It's impressive, but also limiting.
Elaborate.
They're so focused on serving you that they've forgotten how to grow as individuals. Loyalty and dedication are important, but when they come at the cost of personal development, when they stop people from becoming the best versions of themselves, something valuable gets lost. The Emperor's silence stretched for long moments, as he processed concepts challenging 10,000 years of Imperial doctrine. He was a being who had touched powers beyond normal comprehension, yet remained not just uncorrupted, but somehow strengthened by the experience.
Dangerous thoughts,
the Emperor observed finally.
In my reality, individual growth is a luxury humanity cannot afford. Every moment spent on personal development is time not spent fighting forces that would see our species extinct.
Maybe, Goku acknowledged. But in my experience, people fight better when they're fighting for themselves as much as others. When they have personal reasons to grow stronger, individual goals to reach for. Your warriors are incredible, but strength without personal purpose has limits. The debate might have continued, but it was interrupted by disturbances that made previous discussion seem trivial. Across the wasteland, reality began to bleed. Chapter 8. The Chaos Convergence. The sky above Skarek turned the color of dried blood as dimensional barriers began to fail. From tears in space-time emerged entities that should not have existed in the material realm. Daemons, corrupted space marines, and things defying description or sanity. But this was not random chaos incursion. This was coordinated assault unlike anything seen since the Horus Heresy itself. Representatives of all four Chaos Gods were manifesting simultaneously, drawn by Goku's transformation and united by a single terrifying purpose. They had come to claim or destroy the anomaly before his influence could spread further. Multiple daemon engines. Corrupted. Where is he? Bellowed a voice carrying absolute violence's authority. Daemon Prince Kartax the Soul Render materialized at a cornate warband's head, his form blazing with crimson fire. Where is the warrior, whose rage burns so purely it calls to the blood god himself? But Khorne's forces weren't alone. From another rift came Murgle's Plague-bearers, led by Great Unclean One Rotgut, whose diseased form should have contaminated the very air. Alongside them materialized Tezinch's ever-changing horrors, guided by Lord of Change Ahriman the Prescient. And from the largest reality tear came Slenish's perfect, terrible beauty, led by Keeper of Secrets Enkari the Tempter. An unprecedented alliance. Captain Titus observed grimly, activating his chapter's emergency protocols. The ruinous powers working in concert. Whatever this anomaly represents, it has them truly concerned. Reality buckling under multiple presences. The Emperor's psychic voice blazed with alarm. They seek to corrupt what they cannot understand. My children, prepare for battle, but do not engage directly. This confrontation will determine far more than a single world's fate. Goku stepped forward, his aura beginning to manifest as golden light played around his form. The sight of so much coordinated malevolence should have been terrifying, but his expression showed only focused determination. "I don't know who you guys serve," he called out to assembled Daemon forces. "But if you're here to hurt my friends, then we're going to have problems." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Chapter 9. The Fourfold War, Murgle's Assault, came first. Waves of plague-bearers and daemon engines that spread corruption with every step. But something unprecedented happened as they approached Goku's position. Instead of the usual inevitability of disease and decay, their influence seemed to falter. "Impossible!" Great Unclean One Rotgut bellowed as his most virulent plagues withered in the presence of Goku's spiritual energy. "My gifts cannot take root. His essence burns too cleanly." Sounds of disease failing, corruption retreating. Goku moved through the plague daemon ranks like a force of nature, each strike precise and merciful. Where other warriors would have destroyed his opponents through brute force, he ended their suffering, releasing tortured souls from bonds that had held them in agony for millennia. "You're in pain," he observed sadly, as he touched the center of a writhing spawn's mass with a gentle finger beam. "Let me help you find peace." The daemon's agonized howls faded to whispers of gratitude, before it simply ceased. Not destroyed, but freed from the corruption that had twisted it beyond recognition. From psychic assault, Cientia's gambit followed immediately. Lord of Change Ahriman materialized with a host of sorcerers, weaving impossible geometries designed to trap Goku in paradoxes and mental mazes. "Behold the labyrinth of infinite possibility," Ahriman declared, reality folding into configurations that hurt to perceive. "Navigate the paths of fate and despair, mortal." But Goku's response was devastatingly simple. Where the Chaos Sorcerers expected complex counter-strategies and elaborate escapes, he did something that unraveled 10,000 years of scheming in moments. He walked straight forward, reality straightening, schemes collapsing. "His mind is too direct." One of the sorcerers screamed as his most complex trap simply stopped working. "Every plot fails against pure intention. He doesn't overthink, he just acts on what he believes is right." The psychic maze that should have trapped him for eternity collapsed like a house of cards, undone by the simple refusal to accept that straightforward solutions were impossible. Seductive music, transitioning to frustrated chaos. Slaanish's temptation proved equally futile. Keeper of Secrets Nekari manifested with an host of daemonettes, offering every excess and pleasure the universe could provide. Why struggle against impossible odds? Inkari purred, her perfect form shifting through configurations designed to appeal to every possible desire. Join us willingly, and know pleasures beyond mortal comprehension. Power without effort, strength without sacrifice, joy without consequence. But Goku's response made the Prince of Pleasure recoil in genuine confusion. "Thanks, but I'm good," he said with a smile that carried absolute contentment. "I already have everything I want. Friends to protect, challenges to overcome, and the chance to grow stronger through my own efforts. Why would I want someone else to give me things I can earn myself?" Demonic confusion, temptations failing. "Impossible," Minkari whispered, her perfect features twisting with something approaching fear. "He experiences joy without corruption, pleasure without price, contentment without our gifts. How can he be so satisfied?" Khorne's champions represented the greatest threat. Led by Daemon Prince Carthax, whose rage had been refined through 10,000 years of endless war. But even the blood gods chosen found themselves facing something unprecedented.
Blood for the blood god!
Part-Hax roared as he charged, reality bending around his brass claws.
Skulls for the Skull Throne!
The battle that followed was cosmic in scope. Daemon Prince against ascended mortal, divine corruption against purified determination. But as the fight progressed, something became clear to every observer. Goku wasn't just matching the Daemon Prince, he was growing stronger during the battle itself. Each exchange, each moment when he was pushed to his limits, triggered the Zenkai boost that was his birthright. But here, in this universe saturated with psychic energy, the effect was amplified beyond anything he had experienced. Your rage burns pure. Part-Hax admitted with something approaching respect as their cosmic battle reached its crescendo. No corruption touches it. No hatred taints it. It is fury in service of protection, wrath wielded with perfect discipline. The Daemon Prince's final attack blazed with the combined power of Khorne himself, reality warping to accommodate divine wrath made manifest. But Goku's counter was something the forces of chaos had never encountered. Power drawn not from corruption or external sources, but from the simple determination to protect what he valued. His ki blast, golden energy threaded with the unique resonance he had developed in this universe, didn't just destroy the Daemon Prince. It somehow healed the space he had occupied, leaving reality cleaner than it had been before his manifestation. Daemons retreating, reality stabilizing. As the surviving chaos forces retreated through hastily opened warp rifts, their faith in their patron deities shaken by witnessing the impossible, a terrible silence fell over the battlefield. Goku stood in the center of the devastation, his chest heaving with exhaustion, but his essential nature intact. Around him, the combined forces of the Imperium and his Orc allies stared in awe at what they had witnessed. "It's over," he said simply, though his voice carried overtones that spoke to power beyond mortal comprehension. But even as he spoke, everyone present could sense that this was not an ending, but a beginning. The attention of cosmic forces had been drawn to this small world, and the implications of what they had seen would reshape the galaxy.